Hello and welcome to the International Franchise Association Women's Franchise Committee podcast, Her Success, the stories of female franchise leaders. I'm Amanda Dempsey with Kent Franchise Law Group, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Jacqueline Lee, the General Counsel of Flynn Restaurant Group. Welcome, Jackie. Thanks for jumping on with us today.
Thanks. Great to be here.
I'm going to let you do your intro, but I'll just say, Jackie and I have begun working together this year. We met virtually, so we've not met in person. So this is really a treat for me to be able to learn a bit more about Jackie and to introduce her to people in the franchise space that might not know her. Jackie, do you want to just give us a little bit of info about you? So just, who obviously working for Flynn Restaurant Group, but how you kind of got there, so your background, education, and then how you wound up working for Flynn.
Sure. Like Amanda said, I'm Vice President General Counsel at Flynn Restaurant Group. I've been at Flynn for just about 3.5 years now. When I started with the company, I came in as Associate General Counsel, and my role was to litigate cases for the company. About a year into the role, my former GC, who I had actually worked with for over a decade at my previous firm, she left for her new opportunity, and I was elevated to this role. So I've been the GC for just about 2.5 years now. As I mentioned, Jane, who was the previous GC here, she and I had worked together for a long time at Jones Day, which is where I was prior to Flynn. At Jones Day, I'd gone there right out of law school. I actually summered there as a second-year law student, and I was a litigator focused on intellectual property, pretty much the gamut of industries and subject matter. So copyright, trademark, patent, trade secrets for high-tech companies and life sciences companies, and also did some commercial litigation in the tech space. I was there for just over 11 years before I came to Flynn. I am a Bay Area native, grew up in Silicon Valley, went to high school there, did my undergrad at Stanford, and then didn't go too far, went to UC Hastings for law school just up in San Francisco. I'm definitely a Bay Area girl at heart. My husband and I met when we were in high school together, so we've known each other for a really long time. And we have roots here that extend all the way back. I think you also asked how it was that I came to Flynn. It was that connection with my mentor at the firm. So Jane Freud, who was the previous general counsel at Flynn, she had left the firm after being there for a long time as well. It was one of the first people I interviewed actually with at Jones Day, and we'd worked together for a long time on a number of different trials and IP litigation matters. When she left, she and I found an opportunity to work together. I actually represented one of Flynn's sister companies in a commercial arbitration. She had hired me to handle the arbitration, and through that arbitration, I got a chance to meet our CEO, Greg Flynn, and CFO, Lauren Cortina, and got a chance to know them, got a chance to know the business a little bit more. When we won the arbitration, I got an offer and had the opportunity to think about, whether I wanted to do something different. I'd been at the firm for, over a decade, and actually at the time had thought I would retire there. I thought I'd spend my entire career at the firm. The firm was good to me. I got great projects, learned a lot, and great people. But this was also a really exciting chance to join a company that was clearly on the rise with some really smart, capable leadership, and with someone from the firm that I knew would be great to work with and great to work for. So I decided to take a chance.
Yeah, that's like the best of both worlds too, because even when you're happy where you are, if you know I think the fear of moving can also be, new people and whether you jive with them. And so you knew that you had a great mentor in her and that she would be working with you. So that's actually that's a great story. I'm glad that happened for you.
Yeah, me too. Seems to have worked out.
Yeah, yeah. So just tell us a little bit about, about Flynn Restaurant Group. And, I know, obviously multi-unit franchisee, but tell us a little bit about, the brands that you're involved in and kind of like how they got started, and then maybe just a little bit of your role as general counsel there.
Yeah, sure. So Flynn Restaurant Group, for those who don't know, is the largest restaurant franchisee in the country. It's actually the third largest restaurant operator in the country behind Starbucks and Chipotle. We operate just over 2,300 restaurants across the country in 44 different states. We employ just around 73,000 employees, and it covers 6 brands. That would be Applebee's, Panera, Taco Bell, Arby's, and more recently Pizza Hut and Wendy's, which we brought into the fold following the transaction we did with NPC International earlier this year in March. The company has been around for just about 20 years. It started off with the purchase of just a handful of Applebee's in Washington State, and has taken off since then. So its growth has been pretty spectacular, even in the last 3.5 years that I've been with the company. When I joined, I think we were under 1,000 restaurants and had at that time 3 brands, and now we are 6 brands, and we've almost tripled the size of the rest of the footprint of our restaurant. So it's pretty spectacular. And
if I'm not mistaken, the recent acquisition was almost like a third of growth or something like that. Didn't you?
Yeah, so we went from
something?
Yeah, just about 900 units, the Pizza Hut units, and half of the Wendy's that NPC had been operating at the time. So we just about doubled our size through this transaction. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sure you're busy over there.
It's busy and fun.
It might
crazy.
be a good time to thank you. No, your time today. No. Yeah, well, that's great. That's great to hear, and I'm sure that it's been keeping you busy. So that's awesome. I know that's always lawyers always say it's good to be busy. So I think
yeah,
it's better to be busy than not busy when you're in our business. So
100%.
I know you're loving it. All right, so just question kind of piggyback off of that. So what's been the biggest challenge in transitioning from working, in private practice to going in-house? It sounds like you also had a bit of an industry shift. And I know, at heart, you're still a litigator, right? So the subject matter is just, is probably just part of it, but has there been, big challenges in transitioning to, working in-house and then maybe transitioning also subject matter?
Yeah, I think the biggest change is the pace. Being at a law firm lawyers particularly, in my experience, the litigators, it's busy, right? It's always busy. Folks who think that they have, folks at the law firm that think they get a lot of emails, you have no idea until you've come in-house. It is like drinking from the fire hose, and it can be very intimidating in those first, usually about 3 months. I think I tell folks who come on board with us, like, look, you're going to feel totally off balance those first 3 months. You're going to be learning about the business. You're going to feel like you're doing things half as quickly as you normally do because you're trying to figure out where the resources are, what all these acronyms mean, who the relevant people and business stakeholders are. But you're going to feel like you have to turn things back, twice, 3 times as quickly. There's just so much variety. You have so many different stakeholders and clients within the company that you're trying to provide that excellent client service for. Whereas at the firm, when I was working on these big complex matters, at the time, I definitely felt like I was busy, but there's a lot more like time for like reflection and contemplation and like academic musings, like that's just not the case in-house. You're doing things so that the business can do things, right?
Right. Mhm.
There's not that same kind of intellectual leisure that you get.
Yeah, one of the things I definitely have noticed working in this industry is that my representation of clients is really driven by business goals. So, it's I can give them, case law for days, but it's more like how do I get from point A to point B, and like what are the risks and stuff like that. I mean, they want to
Oh, for
know how to
sure.
accomplish the goal.
I mean, it's not dissimilar to what I think um, junior associates at least should be taught right off the bat. I mean, there is a time and place for like a good legal memo. I still love a good legal
Yeah,
memo, but at the end of the day, when you have associates working for you preparing, whether it's a lengthy legal memo and like a Word document or an email, you want them to make a recommendation, right? Like right up front, like remind me what I asked you to do, and then tell me what the answer is, and then say like, if you want to know how I got to this answer so you can agree or disagree with me, like here's the backup, here's the reasoning, but like you got to give me a recommendation. And just saying like it's a business risk that's up to you is not going to cut it. Like that's not why we hire associates, and that's not why we hire outside counsel now that I'm in-house.
yeah, awesome. That's good. Good points. I totally agree with that. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about diversity since this podcast is about women. So I know that your staff of attorneys is very diverse, and it includes both women and men from various backgrounds, experiences. Tell me a little bit about, how the value of diversity for you, and then and what that brings to your team, and the importance of that at Flynn.
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for asking it. Um, I don't think that it's going to be groundbreaking for me to say that, diversity has value because you get diversity of thought and diversity of opinions. People, have views that are informed by their experiences and backgrounds. And, just as an example, there will be times where we're having a group discussion and I will, say something or describe something as like, well, this is like an obvious conclusion, or this is something that I think is like a generally held axiom. And someone will say like, actually, you could say that because of XYZ. And like oftentimes, like it's because I'm coming from like a privileged position that I can say something like that. And, I feel very fortunate that folks on my team feel comfortable enough to tell me like that's actually not like a generally held like truth or axiom. That's a viewpoint that may be shared by people that have a certain background, but not everybody. And that's the second sort of piece about why diversity has value and is important. It's one thing to have people on your team that have diversity of thought and perspectives and can help you see things in a more nuanced and fulsome way. It's another thing for them to feel comfortable enough to share that with you and put themselves out there in what can feel like a risky position. It's much harder to do that if you're the only person of color, the only diverse member of your team, because you will question whether that sharing that will have negative consequences for you. So I think there's a lot to be said, but those two pieces I think make us a better team.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think I've seen firsthand, how the people on your team have, felt really comfortable being leaders in certain areas. And I think that that's all part of it, right? Like whether you feel comfortable with yourself and being yourself at work, also I think affects how you're able to step up in doing your work, right? So
for sure. And we know from people's experiences and the literature that there are demographics that feel comfortable bringing their authentic self at work, because there are no consequences. There are no real consequences to bringing your authentic self to work. if you're in a position of privilege, and there are and have been real consequences for, people of color to come to work and like try to, express and be their authentic selves. So the less risky that becomes for our very talented team members, the more they're able to feel like they can bring their authentic selves to work, the more that they will be able to contribute.
Yes, totally agree. So next question is kind of along the same lines, but so you're a female executive now, whether you think of yourself that way or not. I always say it's hard for lawyers to think of ourselves as non-lawyers, but I mean, you're an executive, you're general counsel at a large company. So do you feel a responsibility to kind of mentor and empower and give opportunities to other women and minorities, given the fact that you're in the C-suite now and you have some control over that stuff. So just wanted to get your feel about that and how you approach that.
Yeah, I mean, as an executive, any executive, I would feel responsibility to help develop and mentor and promote talented team members. Being someone that's a woman and a person of color puts me in an even better position to do that for diverse candidates, because I can bring my own experience to the table and hopefully be able to help other executives and my peers make that in a more accessible path for everyone. So I would hope that even if I were not a woman or not a diverse person, if I found myself in a position of power, I would use that power to do the right thing and do good. But I may not be as equipped to do that.
Sure.
I feel like I am better equipped because I am a diverse executive.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like a matter of priority. I think that people who don't have the same experience as you might have always hired a woman or always hired, a person of color if they did their job well, but it just might have been more of coincidence, right? And I try to think about that myself in my own leadership. Like, am I making an intentional choice to be inclusive? Like, am I making an intentional choice to be inclusive and to promote people and provide opportunities for people? So, I see that as my goal. And I think clearly your team, demonstrates that you kind of make a priority out of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're awesome.
Yeah. And that's not even to speak to skill, right? That's a whole nother, point, but yeah, that's great. So I just want to talk a little bit about pandemic. I hate to harp on it, but I saw that you were recently awarded the Corporate Council's 2021 Women Influence and Power in Law Award. So and you won that award for leadership through crisis. So you were in the category of retail and consumer goods. Clearly, Flynn Restaurant Group owns restaurants, right? During a time when it was tough to own restaurants. So it looks like you were promoted to general counsel, and if I have the timing wrong, please feel free to correct me, but about a year prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, so around March 2019 is when.
Okay, so you're still kind of adjusting to the role. I imagine, sometime, probably still learning new aspects of the business and how, how to do this new general counsel role, and then everything changes, right? So I just wanted to hear from you, like, as a new leader during that time, what lessons about leadership did you take from that, from, the past like 18 months? I mean, it's still ongoing, so I'm sure it's still developing, but just wondering, somebody that was kind of just recently promoted, like, what kind of lessons did you learn as a leader in that time?
Great question. I mean, one of the important lessons I learned about leadership during that time was that you don't lead in a vacuum. I think that our team was able to be as successful as it was and to grow during that time. I mean, we ended up doubling the size of our legal team between 2020 and 2021. And that is because we operated as a team. It wasn't just me, cultivating people one-on-one, or recruiting people one-on-one, or trying to develop folks like through one-on-one sessions, right? It is the power of the group to lift each other up and to challenge each other and to support one another and fill in when someone needed to take a break. I mean, there were lots of different personal challenges that the team was facing, like many other people during the pandemic. And it was really important to be able to give people the space to, you know, share what they needed, and what support looks like for them. And that's something that requires an entire team effort behind. And so I realized, I think during the pandemic, that like the success of the team is not dependent on a single person. The person that's, you know, been, you know, delegated or designated the leader. It is about everyone feeling like they have a responsibility to each other and to make each other better and to support each other where they can.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm glad. I mean, I think that one thing that's becoming apparent through our conversation is that one of your goals as a leader is to, you know, really encourage people to be comfortable expressing, you know, their needs, who they are. And I think COVID kind of did that for everyone, right? Because we all had, like, we were all in our kitchen or our living room, right? So like, you know, I always said from, you know, I'm a lawyer at private practice, right? And you know, like my veil came off like during
Oh,
COVID.
yeah.
Like, this is my kitchen, this is my living room. You know, there was no way of getting around that. And so clients really started to see me as a human, and not just like someone that was producing work product for them. And I think that's been really positive for me in the long run, because it's made me feel more comfortable, because like they already saw that that's already happened, you know. And so I think, you know, as someone who's leading a team, to make your employees feel comfortable, just, you know, because there was no option really of them hiding where they lived in that dirty pile of laundry, right?
Yeah.
So to make them feel, you know, this is you, I know this is you, this is the real person that you are, and you know, how can we do this together as a team?
Right.
It had to be so invaluable for your team. And I think probably, you know, makes them feel very comfortable with you as the person that's kind of like leading the ship, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I sure hope so.
Well, it seems to be working. I mean, everyone has wonderful things to say, so I would say that's probably working for you.
Oh, thanks.
Did you have any issues with keeping staff motivated? I mean, I don't want to, like, you know, beat COVID to death here, but did you have issues with that? I mean, I know everyone's really going through issues with staffing right now. So I'm sure at the
Yeah.
restaurant level, you know, you're experiencing that from the business side. But do you personally have, you know, issues keeping people motivated and like retaining employees and kind of navigating that issue?
Yeah, that's a great question. In a word, no, not stated like that. Like, I'm very fortunate that the folks on our team who occupy all different kinds of roles on our team, they're all incredibly talented and committed and internally motivated to do right by their client. So the real challenge was not how do you keep them motivated to do the job. I mean, it wasn't really a question of that, because they all feel personal responsibility to our client, the business. It was more of how do I support them, you know, individually and as a group during a time when it's really difficult to provide the level of service that I think our clients really needed. Like, this is a time when legal, that like you have a chance to like be a hero or fall flat on your face. Like this, the business could not have needed us more at this time. So how do you balance that and their desire to service the client, and also, you know, take care of themselves, right? And take care of each other. Burnout was like a huge risk there. And, you know, it comes down to like making people feel safe and comfortable to raise their hand when they need a break. They need some grace. They like need to move things around, whatever it was, right? It's really trying to like make sure that they're also taking care of themselves, because I think for lawyers and for many people, especially in the restaurant industry, they tend to like put the client and the guest like above themselves at the risk of, completely burning out and at the risk of their health. And so it's my job to try to like keep an eye on folks, and like if they don't seem like they're doing great, don't wait for them to say like, hey, I'm not doing great. Like just, pull them aside virtually and ask. Sometimes that's all you need to do is just ask, like, how are you doing? You seemed a little off today. You seem a little down today. Like, I want to check in with you. Tell me what's on your mind, right? Like that's our responsibility.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think that's it's kind, and it's being a good community member, whether you're the leader or you're the colleague or who
Yeah.
you are. It's like reaching out. And I work with a group of attorneys also. I work for a large firm, but I work with a group of people, and we really had to do that as well, where it was like, this
Yeah.
one, this one hasn't put down the crying baby in 6 hours. So like, how can we help?
Yeah.
And so, the
Absolutely.
nature of the work, and I'm sure for you also, the nature of your work changed a little bit, because I mean, you're asking questions that like really a lot of people are asking you questions that maybe you've never had to really think about before, right? Because this is totally unprecedented stuff.
Yeah.
As much as I hate that
Mhm.
buzzword, but so it's, you're trying to find the answer to things that might not exist, and there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that when you're in our role. But
Totally.
just, noticing what's going on with your fellow coworkers is so important.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, so I just want to talk about a couple of things, just more personal things to you. So tell me about an inspiring or empowering moment in your career that really, and it can be, early, you're with Flynn, or early on in your career, that really changed your journey, and you think maybe like helped you get to this point in your career.
Yeah. I've been lucky to have lots of great sort of professional opportunities and experiences, both at the firm and then at Flynn itself. I mean, like, I feel like in some ways, while I've been here for like 3.5 years, I've gained like 10 years of experience
Yeah.
crammed into the last like three years. Um, but when I saw the question and was thinking about what came to mind first, I think a big turning point was that arbitration that I handled for Flynn Properties, which is Flynn Restaurant Group's sister company. It was the first arbitration or trial that I had first chaired. And I was calling the shots, and I did the opening, I did the closing, I did the witness examination, and I won, which is a great feeling. But it was really the first time that that a client who admittedly had worked with me for like over a decade and like knew my capabilities, but the first time a client had entrusted me and was looking to me to give them good advice and to represent them and to win. Like, this was not like a small stakes thing. This was a, high stakes thing. And oftentimes that kind of opportunity doesn't present itself at a big firm as early as it does in a small sort of nimble firm where you don't have as many resources, and sometimes the stakes are not as big. And again, I got tons of great experience and learnings at the firm, but I'd met partners at the firm who were 10 years senior to me and still hadn't done an opening statement in a trial. And to me, that was, that was troubling. Like, I didn't want to wait until 10 years hence to get my first shot at like a meaningful trial opportunity. So I think that experience, like someone having the confidence in me and starting to build that confidence in myself is, people are going to ask me questions and they're going to be looking to me for the answers. And there are not going to be 3, 4, 5 partners weighing in on the language of this particular email, which I'm sure clients are like cringing internally to know that that's what happens at a firm. But like, hopefully all your outside counsel are writing off that time. But like, like you're going without a safety net. So you start to develop this sense of confidence, which probably should have been there, right? There's nothing that like, it's not like I took a class or had any like, other extensive experience that gave me that confidence. It was just the fact that like, it's on you, make a good choice, right? And sometimes you make the right choice and sometimes you don't, but it's on you. And that sort of responsibility gives you the confidence to do like tons more than you thought you were capable of. I think it just opens the door. So for me, I think that was a really formative moment in my development into the kind of professional that I am today.
Yeah, there's a sense of freedom that comes along with that, I think, just knowing for yourself internally that that's something you can do, right?
Yeah.
Because even if 1,000 people entrust you to do it and you second chair 100 trials, right? There's just that like little question in your ear about like whether it would have been the same if you did it.
Yeah.
I remember the first time my husband actually first chaired a case, and it's completely changed him as a person. I'll say that, in terms of as a person and as a litigator. And I have a few of those moments myself where just being able to do something myself and have it work, like my first big closing that I handled myself, and just all of, everybody signed on the right line and the check was delivered, and and then just seeing, happy clients is it's such a big deal in our business. So
yeah,
congrats to you.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so two more kind of personal questions. So what is your proudest moment? This is a tough one. I always ask it. I love it. But it's hard. It's hard to answer. So it does not have to be work related, but just the proudest thing that comes to your mind when I say that.
Yeah, I had to think about this for a minute because there's like lots of like professional accomplishments, but the thing that came to mind, and it is a personal story. So a couple of years ago, right before I was promoted into this role, and like right around the time that my mentor had said, like unexpectedly to me, that she was leaving, right? And we didn't know what was going to happen to the GC role, whether they were going to bring someone in from the outside or anything. My son got very sick with a mysterious illness that no one could tell us what it was. We brought him to the emergency room several times. They told us it's just like a virus. It'll be fine. And I knew it wasn't fine. I knew that this was something more than that. And so like, don't take this as like go and WebMD and you're a doctor and everything. But like I Googled it, man. I Googled his symptoms because I knew they didn't know my son and they didn't know what his like baseline normal was.
Sure.
Right? But I did know that.
That's that mom sense. You get the, you're like, these symptoms don't add up, but but I know something's not right. Yeah.
That's right. And so I did Google it, and I found a very rare disease that I thought I think this is it. It's called Kawasaki's disease, which got a little bit more press since the pandemic, because the MIS-C syndrome that was experienced by children suffering from COVID, that was like the outlier, but like very severe case, resembles Kawasaki disease, which is like an inflammatory disease. So I brought that to his pediatrician. I said, look, he has these symptoms. You need to admit us to the hospital right now. You need to refer us there, and then they need to give us this treatment. And they hemmed and hawed, and like I pulled out my lawyer card and we got to the hospital, and then they hemmed and hawed again, and I pulled out my lawyer card again. And ultimately he got the treatment that he needed. And at the same time, that was my strength. My strength is like figuring out the answer to the problem and getting it resolved. And my husband, his strength is just the logistics and dealing with the messy stuff and like keeping everyone calm. And so while he was dealing with like trying to get my son to like take the medicine, which like if like for all the parents that might be listening, like how it is, like it's horrible. to deal with trying to get your kid to take medicine
You're
they
like,
need.
this is gonna make you better. And they're like, no.
No, tears, it's messy. Like he dealt with all of that. Well, I dealt with like the advocacy piece. And so really like when when my son got discharged from being in the hospital for almost a week, and again, like the timing is very critical because if you don't catch Kawasaki's within the first 10 days, it can do permanent damage to your heart. And like we were already at day 6 when people were telling us like, no, it's not a big thing, like just wait it out. So like that to me is one of the proudest moments because it is a time where like my husband and I, like as a team, we were great parents, I think. Like we did what we needed to do, and I could advocate for what I knew was the right result, and we got that result. And my son is like healthy, totally fine today. But it's one of those things where like I was looking over my life and like what am I proud of, and like that is one of the moments where I thought to myself like I'm proud, like boom, I did a good thing, right?
Well, it sounds like you use like some of your like, most, I don't know, important skills, right? And like maybe some of the skills that you learn at work, right? And I think as moms, like we always just, there's always juggling going on. And I think we are tough on ourselves, but it was like you got to use your skills, and make them work for your family. And like that's the best case, like to be able to take the skills that we learn being women at work, right? And then to say, to use them. Like, I mean, you were a litigator with those doctors, right? Like you went in there and said like,
sure,
here's the facts, right? And this is the research I did, right? And that's what makes you awesome at work. It also makes you an awesome mom. And that's
and I think it, like, to me, it really underscored, like, again, I was able to get that result in part because of my skills, but in part because I occupy a very privileged position, right? I think there are a lot of people out there that would not have gotten that same result, right? They didn't have the same kind of advocacy skills or training. They wouldn't have had the time to do that like research on their own. And it was really like, to me, on the one hand, it was like, awesome, I did this. I'm really proud of like my family as a team, like, the whole family as a team. We had grandmas like staying at home while we were at the hospital taking care of our daughter. I mean, like that was a true team effort by the family, and I was so proud of that. But again, it was one of those things where it's like, you did this, but you were only able to do this in large part because you were extremely privileged. So I think about that all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's a great lesson because I think you're right. The same people don't have access to that same everything, the same material, the same research, they're relying on doctors who aren't listening to them.
Right. Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why, I was really motivated to start our pro bono program at Flynn. In our legal department. We do a pro bono day, which we're going to have be at least a twice yearly thing, because we do have access to skills and ability to advocate and training that many communities just don't have access to that, and that's a privilege for us, and we have a great opportunity to give back to the communities that support the communities that we operate in our restaurants. And so that that is one of the things that sort of drives my interest and commitment to pro bono at Flynn too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys are doing that. That's great. All right, one last question, because I know you have to jump, and I do sincerely appreciate your time today, because it's been great to kind of pick your brain a little bit. But let's go with this one. If you give one piece of advice to a young woman just entering the workforce, what would that be?
Yeah, I also had to think about this long and hard, because I'm naturally not a person that like gives pithy advice.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
these
like,
questions are so hard. It's like one thing, like there's only one thing,
there's
like,
only one thing. Exactly. What I was thinking about, and what I would probably say is, for every job that you ever have a role in, you will learn something if you are paying attention, right? It could be a terrible job, and it could be a terrible job because you have a terrible boss. Like, if you pay attention about why that boss is terrible, you will learn what not to do. Ideally, you will have great work experiences where you have fantastic leaders that you can emulate and learn from. You'll get opportunities that you can take with you and have as experience, and like make mistakes and learn from them too. But regardless of what kind of job you have, in whatever role and in whatever industry, I think you can learn from it. As long as you're keeping your eyes and ears open, and that will make you the professional that you want to be.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's one I haven't heard before, but I think you're totally right there. I love that. As like, someone who seems to be a lifetime learner, like that makes total sense. And it's just, it's going to be a huge part in everyone's journey, right? That next step and collecting all that data,
Yeah,
good jobs or bad, and then just, using it to propel you forward, right?
that's right. Exactly right.
All right, well, we're going to wrap up. I just wanted to thank you one more time for joining us today. I know a lot of people are going to love this insight and love getting to know you a little bit better. I certainly have. For anyone that's listening that wants to get more involved with the IFA Women's Franchise Committee, we do have a website. So it's www.franchise.org/about-women-in-franchising. You can also just search for Women in Franchising on the IFA website, but it's a great group, and I've learned so much and have made so many great contacts through being involved with that group. We also have local chapters. So Women's Franchise Committee has chapters called the Women's Franchise Network in all major cities. And you can find the contact info for the one that's closest to you on the website as well. So thank you again, Jackie. I'm sure we'll be talking soon. And yeah, all the best. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.